The audience was riveted by this exchange, far more than they had been by his story. "Would you give me your voice, your firstborn, your life?" He laughed nervously. The woman threw off her cloak, and he took an involuntary step away from her, and then another. The crowd shrank back in anticipatory horror. You... He couldn't get the words out. Black horns, as sinister as her smile, curved back from her head. Her lips were the red of freshly spilled blood. Her cheekbones were as sharp as the pain of lost love. And he was afraid that her heart was indeed as cold as the deepest part of the ocean. Suddenly it struck the storyteller that tales all came from somewhere, and that Perceforest was rumoured to have a very young queen, one whose name he hadn't thought to ask, but was beginning to guess. Which meant that standing in front of him was... "You must have guessed my name, storyteller. Won't you tell me yours?" Maleficent asked. But it seemed he couldn't make his mouth work. She waited a moment, and then her lips curled up into a smile that promised nothing good. "No, no matter. Let this be your fate. You shall be a cat, yowling your stories under windows, but never having the satisfaction of getting better than a thrown boot or water dumped on your head for your trouble. Let you remain so until my wicked heart relents." Maleficent's hands sent a whirl of glittering golden light at him, and everyone around the storyteller began to grow. Even the screaming children became enormous, their worn leather shoes the size of his head. He fell to his hands and knees. A curious warmth covered him, as though someone had thrown a fur blanket across his back. He opened his mouth to cry out, but the sound that came from him was a terrible, inhuman yowling. "I believe you already know the end of the story," Maleficent said to the crowd. Then she leaped into the sky, her large and powerful wings carrying her away from town in a rush of wind, leaving the storyteller, who had made his living from words, no longer able to speak a one. Chapter 1. When Aurora had been a child in the forest, and her only crown had been woven of honeysuckle, she had thought that the queen of the distant castle must be happy all the time, because everyone had to listen to her and do exactly what she said. Since Aurora had come to the throne, she'd discovered just how wrong she'd been. For one thing, now everyone seemed to want to tell her what to do. Her late father's advisor, a grim-faced elderly man called Lord Ortolan, liked to drone on and on about her royal obligations, which usually involved enacting his strategies for enriching the treasury. And there were the courtiers, young men and women from noble families throughout the kingdom, sent to the palace to be her companions. They took for granted luxuries and delights she had never known. They taught her formal dances she'd never tried before, and brought in minstrels to sing songs of heroic deeds, and jugglers and acrobats to make her laugh with their antics. They gossiped about one another, and speculated about Prince Phillip's extended visit to her kingdom, and whether his pretext of studying Alstedian folklore in the libraries of Perceforest was his real reason for remaining. It was all very pleasant, but they still wanted her to do things the way they had always been done, and Aurora wanted change. She might have expected her godmother, Maleficent, to be sympathetic, but she wasn't. Instead, Maleficent made endless, unhelpful and pointed suggestions about how Aurora would be happier ruling her kingdom from the moors. And while Aurora lived at the palace, Maleficent stayed away. For the first time in her life, Aurora didn't have the comfort of Maleficent's shadow. It didn't help that Aurora would be happy.